When it comes to doing cross-referencing with the database, if it's small enough, it's probably not that big of a deal to say, okay, the model is 200, there we go. So that's the row. The column, let's say it's for the year 2004, is right there, not too bad. You can imagine if you had a huge database, that would be kind of a pain. So we've got the vertical lookup and horizontal lookup functions. The vertical lookup will look up a value that you choose in the leftmost column, and the horizontal will be in the topmost row. Now you could say, okay, well that's not the topmost row. You can choose the topmost row. In any case, for this example, we're going to be using the vertical lookup to look up the model here. And because I'm looking up the model and getting the year, I want the part number next to the label, so I'm going to insert the function right next to the label here. And let's hit equals VL for vertical lookup. You can see in the pop-up it says it looks up a value in the leftmost column here of a table and then returns a value in the same row for a column that you specify. Now by default the table must be sorted in ascending order, and what it means by that is that whatever you're looking up, the value in that column that it's looking in this case for vertical lookup, make sure that if it's numbers it's sorted from smallest to largest ascendingly, or if it's text, again from A to Z, because if it's not in ascending order you're going to get erroneous results. So let's go ahead and with it selected hit the tab key to pop open the function so we can look at the syntax, and the first argument says what's the lookup value. You can go ahead and type in 200 or select the cell right there, then hit comma on the keyboard, and then it says go ahead and select or type in the table. If it's a huge table, then I recommend that you type in the first cell of the table A4 colon, which means through, and the last cell of the table is J15 comma. So we can go to the next argument, and it says, okay, what column do you want to return the value in for the cross-reference? Because right now it's 200 looking in that row, and then the column we want to return is not going to be by labels here, it's going to be by the actual column number with the table that we have selected. So we start over to the left-hand side and we count, beginning with 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So if we want it to return the year 2000, that's the second column, so we type in 2, hit enter, and there you go. So it's looking up model 200, there it is, in the second column, which is year 2000, and hey, it worked. So I can come down here and look up another model for the same year, 250, hit enter, and there you can see 250, the same year. Now if we want to update the year, then we have to come down and double click inside the cell and change it from column 2 to column 3, so we have the year 2001, hit enter. So for 250 over here in column 3, there we go. Now you ought to know by default that the vertical lookup is doing a comparison of greater than or equal to with the value here. So in other words, if I type in 201, you can see that 201 is not there, but when I hit enter, it still returns a part number because it's looking at 201 and it's saying, okay, it's greater than 200 but less than 250, so I'll stay with 200. So looking over here in the third column, or 2001, it pulls in that value, which if you got to be exact to get the correct part number, you could hand out the wrong part number if you don't update the vertical lookup function to look for an exact match. And how do you do it? Well, just come down here and double click on the cell to go inside the lookup function and go to the end where you're just before the last parentheses there, and go ahead and hit comma, and you can see you've got 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth argument here. And by default, even though it doesn't say true, it's going to do an approximate match. So let's go ahead and select false, double click on that to pop it in, then hit enter, and if it can't find an exact match, you get not available or not applicable, and that way we don't hand out a part number that's not going to work for somebody. Now not only can you look up numbers, but you can also look up text. So if I type in blue, hit enter, and let's come up here so we can have it look up blue, type in blue, hit enter, hey, there we go. And as far as text goes, for the vertical lookup, let me double click, you don't have to have an exact match because, blue is blue, right? So it's not going to do a greater than blue, which is red, or less than blue, which is yellow. I'm making that up. There's no such thing as that. Okay, let's go ahead and delete false and hit enter, and it still returns it for that row blue for the column that we specified, which is this one right here, 2001. Let me go ahead and hit undo a couple of times. And if you want, now this one is looking up in column 3, which is year 2001. If you want to help yourself out just a little bit, you can say this is going to be for 2002, the part number, 2003. I mean, you can keep going down, right? So what we want to do is let's go ahead and type in a part number that we do have. Let's do 200, hit enter. And this one right here is for 2001, so we can just go ahead and type in 2001. And so if we go down to the next one, if we want to copy and paste it, we got to be careful because by default the function is relative. So when we go from here down to the next cell, it's going to move the table down one row. And then when we go to the next one, it's going to move the table down again, as you recall in our absolute value training video. So let me go ahead and hover over the lower right hand corner and show you this. To copy that function, when you see the black cross, click and drag down and it copies down. And when I double click on it, you can see that the table doesn't include the top row or the model 100. It keeps shifting down. And also the lookup value has gone from the cell here, E17, down a couple of rows to E19. So what we need to do is hit the escape key, go back to the original function, double click, and say, look, the value is always going to be in that cell, E17, right there. So click before it, hit the F4 key on the keyboard to add the dollar signs. So we've got a constant for the column E and for the row 17, so it's always going to stay there, E17, and then also for the table, F4, so we can add the dollar signs to the beginning of the cell for the table, and then the last cell in the table, hit F4 again to add the dollar signs, hit enter, and then go ahead and select it, hover over the lower right hand corner and double click really fast, and there you go. So now the function is working accurately, except we need to update it. So this function references 2002 or column 4. So we double click and we say 4. Then the next one's going to double click and be 5. And there you go. So when somebody looks up a model number and says, I can use any part number from the years 2001 to 2003, just type in 250, hit enter, and say, okay, well, which one? And if you got your costs over to the right-hand side, you can look up and say, oh my gosh, this one is going to cost at least, get the 2001. If that's compatible, you're good to go. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel, get notified of the latest videos, and for only $2 a month, you can have access to all my Microsoft Office training videos.